during your career as a fighter, how did you navigate reducing injury risk? And then also, whenever you did get an injury, how did you train around that, work around that, or what kind of game plan did you establish? And I'm pretty sure it depended on the injury to kind of go down that road and navigate that path in order to not make the injury worse, and then also come back and be, a lot better than you were before.
So, so obviously we want to prevent injuries before they even happen.
Yeah.
Right. You will have your freak accidents. Like I said, you step somewhere and you roll your ankle, you post your hand here. These things happen. It's fighting. That's what's going to happen. But preventative things that we can do is, one, good nutrition. Right. If you have good nutrition, you're going to cut down your inflammation. Inflammation helps cut down on tightness of muscles, of joints, things that they'll add up over time.
Yeah.
Right? Stretching, right? Something like stretching or warming up.
Mobility work.
Warm-ups, post-workouts, right? Because if you're not stretching and doing mobility and warm-ups and whatnot, now, and you're not foam rolling, you're not doing all of your small soft tissue stuff, then everything in your body starts getting tighter and tighter and tighter until the point that it's so tight that now when that little twinge, that little step you took would have been okay, but now because you're so tight and you haven't done any type of recovery or you haven't done enough recovery, now your knee blows out. Yeah. Or now your ankle does whatever. Right?
Kind of to that point about like the whole entire mobility thing is just like, I feel like there's two camps too, and I always like to give that nuance to it. There's people who need that mobility work. Like some of the fighters I work with, their hips are hella tight. And when your hips are hella tight, then you put a lot of stress on your knee joint whenever you're doing movements, excessive stress. And it's only until you kind of reach that breaking point to where it's just like it finally clicks. So like you were saying. But then there's also the ones who don't necessarily need more mobility in other areas. And that was you being like, hey, yo, my hamstrings are tight. And I'm just like, touch your toes. And you can put your palms on the ground. And I was just like, your hamstrings aren't tight.
Hypermobility.
Yeah, you got hypermobility and you just have more tension in your hamstrings than you were used to. So it'd be like, having too much mobility can also be an issue because then you can be putting more stress on certain areas. So I found like both of them, right? Like both of them. But when it comes to injuries, for the most part, from what we've seen and what you've experienced as well, it's usually like the tightness and not doing the mobility work that's needed because of how intense what you're doing is, and things do get tight and wound up.
Right. So like we've come across two now. So we've got sleep. Or I didn't say sleep yet. I'm sorry, nutrition, mobility. That you're stretching, you're foam rolling, everything, and then sleep is huge because if you're not sleeping, you're not really recovering, right? Your muscles need time to rebuild. You need sleep. It's and like you were talking about earlier was having your mind be quick and like on point, right? Like your mind is not sharp.
Yeah.
When you're not getting the best sleep.
Reaction time.
Yeah. So even your mental state can affect you getting injured. Normally, if my brain was not clogged and foggy because I'm tired, I would never have stepped this way or done this reaction. And now that I did it, made the wrong move, now I'm injured. So it is something to do with your brain as well. And then also, it's listening to your body, right? You have to listen to your body and that's like one of the biggest things is like, coming up, we're all like hard fighters. And it's like, you don't want to get up, but you tell your inner bitch, like, shut the fuck up. I'm getting up anyway, right? And you get up and you go, like, dude, I can't remember. I remember so many times, like, as an amateur and as a pro, I mean, pretty much every time, you would get, even when I was in my 20s, like, you would wake up and you're sore and you're tired. And you're like, man, I don't want to go train today, but I have a fight coming up. I have to get up. And you just force yourself up. And then you start moving around and you feel good. That was always a good barometer, too. Even if you feel bad, because there are a lot of times that you are just tired or like you are fine, but you're just mentally you're tired and you're a little sore. What my barometer was to know if it was going to be a good training day for me to train hard or do whatever I was going to do is I would make it to the gym and I would do the warm up. Okay. If I did the warm up and then I started feeling good and I was like I'm good, then we could train. Yeah. If I was doing the warm up and it was still rough. Things were aching, things were hurting. I didn't feel like I was there that day. Yeah. It can be a very technical day. Gotcha. A very light technical day. Right. Because when you have a fight coming up, you do kind of have to you do have to be there more. Even like where normally if I didn't have a fight coming up and something was aching, I might not come in as much.
Yeah.
I might just take time to let that heal.
Yeah.
But you got to fight in a few weeks. You kind of have to train.
Yeah.
You have to be in there, right?
Right.
So to work around those injuries, you can do a lot of things depending on what type of injury it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I hurt
yeah.
my hand, then I'm gonna throw my left hand and do everything around that.
Yeah.
Okay. I've literally had injuries on my arm. I think what it was, I hyperextended my arm in sparring. I missed the punch and my elbow went out that way.
Oh.
And so I literally was grappling and doing stuff with. I was grappling with my arm tied to my body. I had them just wrap my arm to my body, and I was doing grappling with one arm and my legs, literally. That was one way for me to work around it.
Right.
If my legs are hurt, right, if my knees hurt, then I can, go sit on a box and punch the heavy bag, or swim, or do something that like I'm able to work around it.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you are in fight camp, like I said, it depends, and this all depends on if you're fighting or not.
Yeah.
If you don't have a fight coming up, take the time to heal it.
Yeah.
So that you're going to be better sooner, so you can jump back into camp. Right. But if you have a fight coming up, then it's different.
Yeah.
Then you have to figure out a way to train and continue to fight. When I was getting ready for my UFC debut against Spike, I blew my MCL out 3 weeks out from the fight. Like blew it out. Like I was rolling with Gabe over at Inside Control. He was doing an inside heel hook. I pulled my knee out and it went like that. It didn't hurt, right then. So we kept rolling. And then when I went home, then I couldn't walk. And I was like, shit. So now we're 3 weeks out. I've got to cut weight. This is when I was fighting at 145. It's very hard for me to make that weight without like the training that I'm doing. So what I was doing every day, I was barely able to like ride a stationary bike. I would get on the stationary bike. I was doing sauna. One of my sponsors at the time, they had they were doing laser treatment. Like you had to wear the glasses. They would do laser treatment on it every single day. I would drive out to St. Pete, laser treatment. And then I go ride the bike. Laser treatment, bike, sauna, ice bath, laser. That was all I was doing. That's all I could do for the 3 weeks leading up to the fight. Up until like maybe fight week, it started feeling a little better, and I was able to start like doing mitts.
Yeah.
I couldn't wrestle or grapple.
Right.
I just had to wait until the fight to let that happen, and hope that my knee would hold out.
Now I remember that time.
Yeah. So
it was a lot of, for what I was doing with you, was just a lot of upper body stuff.
A lot of upper body, yeah, because I couldn't do anything down here. So those are things, and every fighter has something going into a fight. Most of the time, it's rare that you go into a fight 100%.
100%, yeah.
You got something aching, something's hurting. That was a little more serious. Like I said, that was a knee thing. That was like MCL ligament stuff. That sucked, but I worked around it.
Yeah.
Had things where like, my knuckle is, broken. But you work around it, and then you always, as a fighter, if you're gonna claim your injuries, don't tell anybody about it. Don't say anything about it. Just fight, and then say that it happened in the fight, so you can claim it and get your insurance. That's just a pro tip for you guys. Don't tell people that you're injured. That's stupid. Your coaches will know. That's it. But and for sure, don't say anything about it after the fight. I hate when people do that. Oh, I dealt with you'll never hear me say anything after a fight about an injury that I had. I've gone on so many fights with injuries. I don't say anything about them after the fight.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's purely dependent on your situation. Am
Right.
I in a fight? Am I trying to get back? Am I trying to get back to doing camp, or am I just an average Joe who's just training?
Yeah.
Has a normal job. I'm not even trying to fight, and I'm just trying to. You probably don't need to go back into the gym.
Right.
Let's just heal this up and go do your hobby when you're healed up again.
Yeah. So it's three scenarios, right? Like the average Joe that's looking to get into some martial arts or whatnot. Of course, they let it heal up. They need to let it heal up. Stay out of the gym, and let that thing heal up. Secondly, is the other person who they are a fighter, but they don't have a fight coming up. So again, let that heal up. Do other things that are around it. If it's a lower body thing, still you can do some strength work for upper body stuff. I've done that plenty of time with fighters. But again, you can take that time and recover. On the other hand, with the actual fight, like somebody has a fight coming up or they're in fight camp, they have to do everything they possibly can in order to speed up that recovery process. So that's another thing. I feel like it's people underestimating what they need to do when it comes to that, right? Or just kind of like brushing it off as in like, oh, you know, it's just this thing, you know, it'll get better. But it's just like, no, just you actually need to
squash it now.
Sleep more, like we just said. Sleep more. Eat more nutritious food. Don't keep eating the BS. Reduce all the things that you could possibly put in your body that would cause some type of inflammatory response. Sugar, alcohol,
chicken. People realize chicken is inflammatory. It will make you. It'll increase your inflammation.
Yeah,
anytime I get injured, I avoid chicken.
Definitely can. I'd say it's more so like if you're having the chicken that's not necessarily so pasture raised chicken is a little bit better because they don't have all the grain fed in there.
I just say you know, you steroided up conventional chicken.
Conventional
anything really.
Conventional anything meats. Really, yeah. Like if you eat the cleanest food that you possibly can.
Grass fed, organic. Pasture raised.
Eat the cleanest food that you possibly can around that time frame. Make that sacrifice. You're already sacrificing to go into this fight in general. Make the financial sacrifice to do everything that you can in order to do it. And that's also like a telltale sign of, I mean, are you willing to do this? You know what I mean? Like, is this something that you're really invested in? Right? Like, if it's something that you're really invested in, like, you're going to make the effort. Now, of course, certain scenarios, situations, if you don't have it financially, we understand. But still.
Well, when you're out of camp, go back to conventional.
Yeah.
When you're out of camp, go to conventional. When you're in camp, everything's organic, grass-fed.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I used to handle it because, like I said, it's not cheap to do it all the time.
Yeah. But kind of staying on track with the whole injury thing. So, like we said, we had those 3 different avatars and those 3 different scenarios, basically. And you got that you want to try and do everything that you possibly can while you're in camp to nip that injury in the bud to try and make it to the fight and through the fight.
And I would say supplements as well. Not everybody believes in supplements. I believe in supplements. The UFC PI believes in supplements. Nutritionists.
No, it's definitely
I believe in that
too.
Things like collagen.
Yeah.
Collagen is really good for your joints and your ligaments. Astaxanthin, fish oil, EPA, omegas. Right, turmeric, curcumin. These things are all anti-inflammatories that will help you. Like now, notice there's supplemental to what everything else you're doing. So if you're getting your sleep, you're taking your recovery days off, you're doing your strength conditioning correctly, you're doing your mobility, your nutrition is on point, right? The food that you're eating. Then you can add supplements because that's the final thing. Yeah. You don't have to do supplements. That's supplements literally to add to whatever else you're doing. So if you're doing everything else correctly and you feel like you want a little bit of collagen because your joints are a little achy or whatever, like it's going to help with you or you want to get the inflammation down a little more. Even though like what I notice is when I'm eating super clean, inflammation kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Like you don't have a lot, and your brain is much clearer. When you're eating clean, you tend to heal faster.
Yeah.
That's what I notice a lot of times. Whereas if I bruise now and I'm not in the best shape, that bruise may stick around for a long time. Yeah. When you're eating super clean and you're deep into fight camp and you're in great shape, bruises don't last long. Injuries don't last as long. And that's when you can, like when you're talking about if you have a little, my knees a little, whatever, you kill it right then. Really start, I get my red light on it, heat, traction, whatever movement, start working on it and squash it before it even becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Because then, by the time it is a thing, it's too late.